1 Samuel, chapter 16. And Yahweh says to Samuel, Until when are you mourning for Saul? And I have rejected him from reigning over Israel. Fill your horn with oil and go. I send you to Jesse the Beth-Lehemite, for I have seen among his sons a king for myself. And Samuel says, How do I go? When Saul has heard, then he has slain me. And Yahweh says, You take a heifer of the herd in your hand, and have said, I have come to sacrifice to Yahweh. And you have called for Jesse in the sacrifice, and I cause you to know that which you do. And you have anointed for me him of whom I speak to you. And Samuel does that which Yahweh has spoken, and comes to Beth-Lehem. And the elderly of the city tremble to meet him. And one says, Is your coming peace? And he says, Peace. I have come to sacrifice to Yahweh. Sanctify yourselves, and you have come in with me to the sacrifice. And he sanctifies Jesse and his sons, and calls them to the sacrifice. And it comes to pass in their coming in, that he sees Eliab, and says, Surely his anointed is here before Yahweh. And Yahweh says to Samuel, Do not look at his appearance and the height of his stature, for I have rejected him. For it is not as man sees, for man looks at the eyes, and Yahweh looks at the heart. And Jesse calls to Abinadab, and causes him to pass by before Samuel. And he says, Indeed, Yahweh has not fixed on this one. And Jesse causes Shammah to pass by, and he says, Indeed, Yahweh has not fixed on this one. And Jesse causes 7 of his sons to pass by before Samuel. And Samuel says to Jesse, Yahweh has not fixed on these. And Samuel says to Jesse, Are the young men finished? And he says, Yet the youngest has been left, and behold, he delights himself among the flock. And Samuel says to Jesse, Send and take him, for we do not turn around until his coming in here. And he sends and brings him in, and he is ruddy, with beautiful eyes, and of good appearance. And Yahweh says, Rise, anoint him, for this is he. And Samuel takes the horn of oil, and anoints him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of Yahweh prospers over David from that day and onward. And Samuel rises, and goes to Ramath. And the Spirit of Yahweh turned aside from Saul, and a spirit of sadness from Yahweh terrified him. And the servants of Saul say to him, Now behold, a spirit of sadness from God is terrifying you. Now let our Lord command your servants before you, that they seek a skillful man playing on a harp. And it has come to pass, in the spirit of sadness from God being on you, that he has played with his hand, and it is well with you. And Saul says to his servants, Now provide for me a man playing well. Then you have brought him to me. And one of the servants answers and says, Behold, I have seen a son of Jesse the Beth-Lehemite, skillful in playing, and a mighty, virtuous man, and a man of battle, and intelligent in word, and a man of form, and Yahweh is with him. And Saul sends messengers to Jesse and says, Send to me your son David, who is with the flock. And Jesse takes a donkey, bread, and a bottle of wine, and 1 kid of the goats, and sends them by the hand of his son David to Saul. And David comes to Saul and stands before him, and he loves him greatly, and he is a bearer of his weapons. And Saul sends to Jesse, saying, Please, let David stand before me, for he has found grace in my eyes. And it has come to pass, in the spirit of sadness from God being on Saul, that David has taken the harp and played with his hand, and Saul has refreshment and gladness, and the spirit of sadness has turned aside from off him.